Hello, my name is Vera Mlinar. I am from Slovenian Institute for Adult Education, and I'm dealing with the validation of non-formal and informal learning of adults. In the next few minutes, I will try to share my thoughts about the questions you asked me for. So I will just start with my reflection on topics you sent me. I think that educators, adult educators, need to be good listeners, good analysts, and good motivators. Why? It is important that adult educator is familiar with goals, aspirations, motivation of adults. And it is important that adult motivators at the beginning gain a lot of information about an adult candidate. In a way, what are their hobbies, interests, goals, aspirations, even values. Adult participants often are not aware of competencies, knowledge, and skills they gained through different activities in their lives. In Slovenia, there is still a situation that we value knowledge, skills, attitudes, competencies that are gained within the formal education or other organized training, and we do not value in a proper way competencies that we gain them through other life activities, such as hobbies and other interests we have through our lives. We actually put a lot of time and a lot of effort in things that we are interested in. But if somebody asked us what competencies did you gain, we would actually do not identify any value competencies that we could use in everyday working life or for continuing education and training. So adult educator should be a good listener for a start. Adult educator should actually listen carefully to adults, and they should ask them about their everyday life activities with equal importance as they ask them about working life. From that information, adult educator should actually identify those which could be which could use for future plans and future activities of adult. So not all information which they gain are not actually usable. But through the analysis process, the adult educator should identify those information, those knowledge, those skills and those competencies which have value for future activities of adults. It is important that adult educator is a good motivator too, because some adults do not see education or training as a solution to their certain situation, or let's say problems with which they have to deal at the moment. So adult educators should actually use all those information which are usable for future activities of adults to motivate these candidates to make a step further and forward, let's say. Adults have a lot of obstacles. Certain adults have a lot of obstacles in their lives. These can be internal or external, such as low self-esteem, low education, lack of interest, lack of competencies. They face different roles in their lives. They are partners, husbands, wives, their children, they have children, so they often say that they do not have time or energy for education or training too. So I would actually say that soft skills are those which are really important for a good adult educator. And of course, among this soft skill, listening, communication, understanding of candidate situation are those soft skills which can help adult educator to identify competencies of adults and his aspirations and goals and his motives, and this actually can use for further activities and to motivate adults to make a step forward. The competencies adult educator would need in a future, I see among those I already mentioned, I see two of them as really important in the future. These two are digital competencies and cultural competencies, cultural awareness. The environment is changing, the working environment is changing, the social environment is changing. We are facing actually a really fast technological development. So we have to be familiar with this progress. So I see digital competence as a really important competence for the future. As an adult educator, I am actually facing nowadays with a lot of different platforms for communication, for education and training. And also I'm facing with a lot of methods and tools for working with adults that are actually in a digital form. So the digital competencies are really important for the future, also for adult educator, and cultural awareness. We are facing actually a lot of changes in society, globalization, migrations, and cultural awareness is a really important competence for adult educator, because cultural awareness help actually adult educator to understand the influence of culture, different culture, on behavior, values, and beliefs. Lifelong learning in the year 2035 I see as progressive. If I had to use one word to describe it, I would use a word progressive. Because I see that lifelong learning in 2035 should enable adults to develop themselves in a way they could answer actually to changing demands of society and the labor market. I mentioned already that technology is developing really fast. Labor market is changing due to competitiveness and quality assurance. If companies want to be successful in the labor market, they should be actually aware of importance of their employees and their competencies. And actually, this is a point where lifelong learning should take a part, and to help really companies and employees to define and identify companies their employees already have, and to actually match these competencies with the demands in the labor market and in the society. Because not just in the labor market, changes are present also in the social life. I can take, actually, when I thought about social life, I can take at this point actually the example of Corona times, when in Slovenia we were actually in a situation that social and working life actually stopped. It was important that we could understand all the information regarding the situation, that we could actually take actions regarding to all information we got. I, as a mother, faced the situation that I had to help my child on daily basis with the schoolwork, but not just with the topics in the school, but most of the time I had to help him with technology, to use a computer, to use a phone, to use video conferences, to help him open the learning environment, digital learning environment, to attach homework, etc., etc. Actually, due to Corona times, I actually saw in practice adults who we define as marginalized or disadvantaged target groups. They faced a lot of problems, a lot of serious problems. They faced actually the situation, they could not understand the information in a proper way. They didn't have technology they needed for everyday life. They didn't have actually the digital knowledge to take some actions. these people really became visible through the corona times. I see that lifelong learning in the year 2035 should be, as I mentioned at the beginning, should be progressive in a way that enable adults to empower adults, I would say, to take certain actions which are demanded within the everyday life and within a specific situation. So I would say that the emphasis would be on soft skills. The emphasis should be really on basic skills which enable actually adults to be active in an everyday life in a proper way, and also to be able to be active in unpredictable situations, which one of them is definitely the corona situation. There are already different mechanisms to combine the universalism of acquired knowledge, skills and competencies with the focused and deep specialization which is necessary with the current complexity of science. In Slovenia, for example, we have supplementary qualifications. Those are qualifications which are known at the labor market. These qualifications are professionalized, are specialized for a certain profession on a certain level. So adults come with certain education at the labor market. And as I think back, when I came from the school to the labor market, I had a certain certificate, a certain degree which was demanded. But actually learning and actual development started in my working environment. I now take the roles I wasn't trained in the school or in the education for them. So there are actually some mechanisms which help individuals to match those two worlds together. We also have a national vocational qualification system which enable adults to accredit specific knowledge, skills and competencies which are demanding for certain professions or for certain jobs. But if I look actually from another perspective, let's say it from national point of view, I can say that it is necessary that we have procedures of matching. These procedures should be actually organized in a way that they enable educators to match all competencies, knowledge and skills of adults on one side, no matter where these competencies were gained, with the specialized knowledge, skills and competencies which are demanding for, let's say, certain profession or certain role in a life, let's say it. These procedures, these processes should enable actually to identify, to document and also to assess competencies which adults gain and match them with the demands on the other side. When we speak about the matching of competencies on one side and demands on the other side, we have to speak about standards. So these competencies should be described in a proper way. They should be put down, and they should be put down in a way that they are precisely defined, and that they can be actually assessed, because just in a situation when standards are clearly defined and when they are measurable, we can do matching, and we can predict what competencies actually are needed in further activities for an adult. Of course, when we talk about matching, it is necessary to talk about also about the trained staff. Adult educators should be trained enough to be able to carry out procedures in a proper way. I have been speaking at the beginning about the ability to about the ability of adult educator to identify, to analyze, to motivate adults. The adult educator should be trained enough to be able to carry out procedure that all phases are delivered. He has to, adult educator has to use procedure in a way that identify competencies of adults, to document them in a proper way, to assess them in a proper way, and to actually analyze them and predict, and to say these competencies are enough for activities you want to take part in, or actually to say these competencies are not enough. You have to gain some others to identify which competencies should be gained in the future, and actually to inform adult through which activities these demanded competencies could be gained. A proper feedback is actually a key step in this procedure. So with the proper feedback, you actually say candidate, say adult, where at the moment he is and where can he go with the competencies he has at the moment. Minimum knowledge that all people should have in a year 2035. This question I found very interesting, because I at the beginning started to calculate how old I will be in year 2035, and what competencies would I need in my age at the time. Actually, I will say that as I brainstormed, the first answer was soft skills. I see that communication, flexibility, problem solving, literacy competencies. Literacy, I mean ability to read in a way that you understand what have you read. Literacy in a way that I could act according to information I have. Math literacy for everyday life, digital competencies. We are facing now through everyday life with situation that we have e-taxes, we have e-banking, we have e-health. We have actually a technology as a tool that enable us to deal with everyday activities from our living room, actually. We do not have to go to a bank. We do not have to go to the doctor to solve problems, to be active, but we can do it via technology, with the help of technology. So I see these soft skills are minimum knowledge to all people if we want them to be active in an everyday life. And all those skills actually also empower people. I would mention another competence which I see very important. This is competence learning to learn. This competence actually is giving people the power to see what are their needs according to knowledge, skills, and competencies, and enables them to define actually what competencies are needed to be able to act in a proper way within the society. So I would say these soft skills are common minimum knowledge that all people should have in the future if they want to participate in everyday life and in working society. The influence of new technology is big, and when I actually tried to answer to the question, can education adapt quickly enough, I came to the answer partly. I would use the situation with the Corona times again, when we faced a new reality. Working and social life stopped. Those who worked from home faced the situation that we were quite successful with the technology we used. We had different platforms for communication, for training, and I think that in that part of adoption to technology needs, we did a quite good job. But the problems emerged on the other fields. First of all, not all adults were included in this process of using technology because of different situations. Some of them did not have a proper technology. Some of them did not have demanded competencies. And lack of knowledge was a big problem, even though in a situation when people had the technology, but they did not have competencies for using them. The problem adult educators faced with the corona times were that actually we could not reach all those who education and training needed the most. We faced the situation that the technology is actually not such a big problem as it was the problem, the lack of knowledge, the lack of skills, the lack of competencies, the lack of motivation. So I would say at this point that education can adopt quickly just partly. We all nowadays, a lot of people have smartphones, and a lot of platforms could be used also on the smartphones. But due to the lack of motivation, due to the lack of competencies and knowledge, we actually could not reach the people who education needed the most. So as I actually look at the situation through the corona times, I would say that we are back actually to the point where I could mention the activities mentioned already. We need well-trained educators. We need educators who could reach those people, who could motivate them, to actually empower them to see the value of competencies and to see the value of education and training in a way that they can see education and training as a solution to their current situation, and as actually as a tool to help them to make a step forward.